Good morning. Welcome back if you're back. Welcome if you're new. I'm Elisa Maria, and you're on Elisa Maria Designs. And today is Self Care Sunday. And today we are talking about a topic that came up a little while ago, and it reminded me of the Artist Way and the second chapter in Julia Cameron's book, The Artist Way, where she talks about crazy makers, also known as emotional vampires. So, happy Labor Day, by the way. I have a big announcement at the end of this, so don't miss it. I am still working on, now you're going to say, well, wait a minute. We just saw a video and she only did the opening. I'm sorry, excuse me. I am having so much fun with this, and especially the way that I have decided now to diamond paint. This is another leg of my diamond painting journey where I am using release paper. But I don't release paper the whole thing. I like looking at my portrait. I like looking at where I'm going. I like looking at where I've been. So I'm really enjoying using my release paper and this method that I'm doing. And if you're curious also, it is in my confetti tutorial, confetti 1 and confetti 2. And it'll give you the technique that I'm using here. So while I was thinking about what was I thinking about? I was thinking about, well, this topic came up a while ago about emotional vampires. And I was thinking about Julia Cameron's book and that chapter. So I'm going to be reading that to you. So I'll go silent in a minute. But there was, when I think about the Artist Way and some of the topics that stood out for me was, of course, the crazy makers. The people that want to intrude on your creativity, the people that want to tell you what to do, or why are you doing that, and yada, yada, yada. There was another chapter too on monsters, and I'm going to go into a little story, and that's where the title of this particular Self-Care Sunday, why your signature is so important. I want to go into a little story, and it has to do with my niece and when she was a little girl, and for years, this has still bothered me. So let's get to it, shall we? Let's get into it. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to start working. I'm going to read you Julia Cameron's Artist Way, and I'm going to tell you that story. And then stay tuned at the end for a really exciting message, because I am so excited and I'm so happy to be able to break this news on Labor Day. Makes sense. Well, hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Self Care Sunday, where we dive into the heart of creativity and the challenges that often come with it. And so today, exploring chapter 2 of Julia Cameron's The Artist Way specifically, focuses on dealing with people who interfere with our creativity or intrude on our time. Those crazy makers, as Cameron calls them. So, as I was reading this topic over, this is a chapter that every time I open it up and I read it, there's someone else that comes to mind in my very small circle of people that I have around me now. And I think reading it this time, and it dealing specifically, I mean, the Artist Way is all about recovering a sense of safety, a sense of identity, a sense of power, a sense of self when it comes to you being creative in any area, in every area of your life. Everyone is a creator, whether you are creating your home, you're creating your family, you're creating your diamond painting, whatever. We're all creators. And this time in particular, reading this chapter, I don't know why, but this is something that has been very much, I guess, because there was no sense of justice where this particular subject came up, and even more so why I titled this video for Self-Care Sunday, why your signature is so important. Your signature is your creativity. For me, it says a lot about a person. And so I had this memory of my niece when she was little and she was in school. And I'm going to tell you about that, but let me define for you first, and I think a lot of this is me thinking out loud. I did try and put pen to paper to this, and sometimes you don't know what you want to say until you see your own handwriting. There you go. You see your own handwriting and you see your own thoughts laid out on paper, and part of it is just me thinking out loud about this subject. So I'm going to open up the chapter right now. Here we go. I thought it was interesting when I read this chapter, and Julia has all these little little titles in this chapter, like I guess it would be like bullet points about how the crazy maker acts and what they do. You know how they intrude on your time. You know, she calls them crazy makers. I call them I call them emotional vampires because I think that is what they are. They want your energy. They see you being productive. They see you doing something, and they want to just throw a monkey wrench into it. So, crazy makers are the kind of people who can take over your whole life. Now that one line is like, oh my gosh, to me, I would never give my whole life over to anybody. I don't care how crazy they were, but it happens. I mean, um, you have um, parents that can really maybe undermine your creativity. You know, a few of my friends have gone on to have careers in painting, and they've trained, professionally trained. They've gone to school. They have careers. They're the whole starving artist thing, and a parent can undermine that creativity in a child because they want you to maybe be something else than what you have in your heart that you want to be. And they can, in a way, if you don't protect yourself, um, just stomp on your dreams. So it's so interesting because John and I were watching Saturday Night Fever last night, and John Travolta comes home and he tells his dad that he got a raise at the paint shop. And he's like, "Oh, that's so great. Why didn't you bring it up during dinner? We could have used some good news." And he's like, "How did you do?" And he's like, "I got a $4 raise." And the father's like, "$4? You know what $4 buys you? It don't even buy you $3." And, this topic was on my mind, and um, what a line. And John Travolta says, I knew I didn't say anything because I knew you'd shit all over it, but I was so happy my boss was going to give me a $2.50 raise. And because I was so appreciative, and he values me and he values my work and what a good guy I am and the customers like me, he went up to $4. And he's like, and this is the only one time in my life when I'm dancing and this raise that I felt good about myself. And I was like, oh my God, this topic is just like, when you start to define a crazy maker, you start to see them everywhere. But that's why I just wanted to get that out there. So if you are involved with a crazy maker, you probably know it already. And you certainly recognize the description, which I didn't give you yet. A related thing creatives do to avoid being created is to involve themselves with crazy makers. Crazy makers are those personalities that create storm centers. Oh, boy. I had a person like this in my life. They are often charismatic. And this was a girlfriend. Frequently charming, highly inventive, and powerfully persuasive. Oh, that was my girlfriend in a nutshell. And for the creative person in their vicinity, they are enormously destructive. You know the type: charismatic, but out of control, long on problems, and short on solutions. Crazy makers like drama. If they can swing it, they are the star. Everyone around them functions as a supporting cast, picking up their cues, their entrances, their exits from the crazy maker's crazy whims. They are most profoundly destructive. I have I have ever encountered that are themselves famous artists. What does that say? Some of the most profoundly destructive crazy makers I have ever encountered are themselves famous artists. Oh, there, now it makes sense. And she goes into a movie set that she was married to Martin Scorsese, Julia Cameron. And I don't think that she's talking about. I think she made that pretty clear as the chapter went on that it wasn't him. But she was like the crazy maker director was up in his like ivory tower, talking to his cast like the Wizard of Oz, and like just driving everybody crazy with his paranoia and his perfectionism and the over hours, and just making everybody nuts. Um, there's another part. Okay, so she goes into defining, like, if that wasn't enough for you to really know what a crazy maker is, she did some bullet points. Crazy makers break deals and destroy schedules. They show up 2 days before they're supposed to show up for a wedding or whatever, and then, they throw everybody in a tizzy and they expect to be waited on hand and foot. Okay? Crazy makers expect special treatment. Crazy makers spend your time and money. Crazy makers triangulate those they deal with because they thrive on energy, and that's your energy. And they set people against one another. And I've seen this between a parent and their children so that they could sit predominantly in the center. You know, I told your sister this. I'll tell your sister this, which will make your brother mad. I'll say something about you to your brother, and then when I'm talking to you, I'll tell you the same story about your brother. And the siblings are at each other's throats. So, you know, you get caught up in hearsay instead of just going, because they they bake in a way such a destructive recipe when it comes to their children. This is my experience in you know parents again that sit right in the middle between the children, and they want to regain all that power. They don't want their siblings to, they don't really want their children to get along, because then they'll feel ousted, and they need to thrive on that energy. Crazy makers are expert blamers. Nothing goes wrong that is ever their fault, and to hear them tell it, the fault is usually yours. If you hadn't cashed that child support check, it would never have bounced, one crazy making ex-husband told his struggling for serenity former spouse. Crazy makers create drama, but seldom where they belong. They're often blocked creatives themselves. They're afraid to effectively tap into their own creativity, and they are loath to allow that same creativity in others. It makes them jealous. It makes them threatened. It makes them dramatic, and all at your expense. They're devoted to their own agendas, and they impose those agendas on others. In dealing with a crazy maker, you are dealing always with the famous issue of figure and ground. In other words, whatever matters to you becomes trivialized into mere backdrop for the crazy maker's personal plight. Do you think she loves me? They call you to ask when you're trying to pass the bar exam or get your husband home from the hospital. It's funny to read it, but I have been in these situations where like nothing that is going on in your life is ever as important as whatever their trivial thoughts are that they have to call you up and they have to tell you about. Like I'm gonna be videotaping at like 2 o'clock, so my do not disturb is going to be on, and I have stopped telling people what my schedule is because they will undoubtedly call me at that time. And you guys have seen this when I'm videotaping and I'll see a message come up and I'll get like all, I am very I get distracted very easily, which is why like I don't have washi tape on my canvas, and I don't have cover minders on my canvas, and I just have to, now that I've been able to pinpoint my diamond painting into like a little tiny little um 2.5 by 3 inch block. You might see some stuff around me when I'm diamond painting, but it is organized in my mind. And so if I am, talking to you and I look up at the camera and I'm like, what the hell? Like, why are they texting me? Or the other phone will ring. Oh, she's got the do not disturb on. She's videotaping. So we'll just call the house phone. Go back to some of my earlier videos and you'll see all that going on. Thank God I made a joke about it. Crazy makers hate order. Chaos serves their purpose. When you begin to establish a place that serves you and your creativity, your crazy maker will abruptly invade that space with projects of his or her own. What are all these papers, all this laundry on the top of my work table? You ask. I decided to sort my college papers to start looking for the matches for my socks. Now, I love my husband, and I know that husbands can drive you crazy, but my husband just came in while I was, working on a canvas, and he said, "I'm going to get you some Pellegrino, ice cold Pellegrino." I was like, "Okay, yeah, fine." And he comes in with the glass, and he's like, "Can I set this down here, like on your desk?" And I'm like, "No." "Well, where do you want me to put it?" I'm like, "I don't know. You could stand there with it, holding it, but stop interrupting me. Like, I'm in a train of thought. I'm doing something. I'm actually working on the next part of the confetti." But there is, like, I do notice sometimes when he needs a little attention, he'll do something that, well, I'm going to do something like get you a glass of Pellegrino, but really, you know, it's equivalent to someone tapping you on the shoulder when you're trying to read something. That's what it's like. And anytime I make a space anywhere for order, like, I went downstairs to fold the clothes, and I'm like, what are all these things on the folding table? I just cleaned this table. So he's got a little crazy in him too. I'm sure I got my crazy too, but we're talking about him right now. um, well, if crazy makers are that destructive, what are we doing involved with them? The answer, to be brief but brutal, is that we're that crazy ourselves and we're that self-destructive. Well, there you have it. But I do think that you need to um, you need to have your boundaries and listen. I mean, there are some people, like when I was talking to you about my girlfriend, she really was like every minute of my day my phone was ringing, or she was sending me text messages. Or I remember a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine that I grew up with, got reservations for take me out to dinner. His partner was in New York and he was going to be in Philly, and he's like, well, he actually came into Philly so that he could take me to this restaurant that had opened, and it had been like a really long wait list. And I was going out that night. And of course, the whole time I was getting ready, I was getting nothing but these messages that had to deal with, like, it's an emergency, it's an emergency, it's an emergency, it's an emergency. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, I just can't, like, believe, like, is this really an emergency? Like, it really isn't. And even if it was, I should have been the last person that was called. So, I mean, I've let that friendship go. They're not in my life anymore. For as much fun and wild and funny and good times that we had, it just got to be where, no, I just can't have you in my life anymore. I can't be giving you my time because that's my highest value. And well, of course, my life and my time, you can't buy time. We all get the same amount of time. We're all the same. We get the same amount of days and the same amount of, my calendar is not, 370 days out of the year. It's 365, like everybody else's. And 24 hours in a day. And I am very stingy with my time and where I spend it and who I spend it on. And I stopped feeling guilty about that. So if I had to give you some advice, don't feel guilty about the goals that you want to meet. And the more that I read this book, and I read it every year I go through the artist way, every year it produces something more for me. But every year I learn how I am creating the world that I want to live in, the world that has my goals at the end of the rainbow, and and me just getting to them. And either I'm going to be around people that are going to be lifting me up and celebrating me, or trying to put me underneath their foot and tolerate me. So there's a lot of people that I've gotten out of my way. And I have to tell you, I went through fear for a long time that if I didn't have these people in my life, that I would be like, what am I going to do? Oh my God, like, I'm going to be alone. And like, you know, I love my solitude. I love my home. I love my life. And I love the peace and quiet and tranquility that only I could have built for myself. And I wish that for you. I wish that for you. So don't let anybody leave you on the side of the road like roadkill. And take your time from you and take your creative energy from you. Oh my gosh. So I guess maybe, I don't know if it was Saturday Night Fever that I was watching last night, but I had this memory um, of, you know, I was thinking about myself as a young girl, and, I've, I think that I've grown into a woman through that little girl. If I look back, I was always the little girl with the composition book and the pen, and I was always writing stories, and my father used to joke and call me Hemingway, and, I just would, I was have fine on my own. I told the story where, like, when I think about things in my childhood, the only thing I needed was a pair of roller skates, and my father bought me a beautiful ballet bag that I threw the ballerina slippers out the window. I don't know where he got this idea that I was going to become a ballerina. I have no idea. I was all tap and jazz hands. So, and roller skates. I never had shoes on my feet. It was roller skates on my feet, and I'd be like, just taking off around the neighborhood in these skates. And everywhere I went, I made noise. Everywhere. I remember that too. I made noise. I had those little Dr. Scholl's sandals, and I would drag my feet until all the rubber came off of them, because they would make a loud clogging noise, like you knew I was coming down the street. And so I think, you know, my creativity, I did maybe lost it some at some points, when I got newly married and I had my child, and you become a mother, and you start, growing into other parts of your persona. And I was always creative. I was always creative with Joshua. I had to be. Had to learn how to make very little money, go very far, and like every day was like a magic trick. Um, and so I maybe was thinking about my time in New York, watching Saturday Night Fever, and, just that whole scene at the dinner table where, he told his father, like, I knew that you would have this response. I knew you would just shit all over me just being so happy. And you could see it, you could see, like, where the father can't stand that he has something that he loves. And that's why he hits him in the hair. He hits my hair. He hits my hair because he worked a long time on it, and he was very proud of his appearance. He had a lot of pride in his clothes and in his walk, and just who he was as a person. You see him break free from the crowd because those guys are going nowhere from what he can see, and he just at the end he just walks away from all of them, and he's like, I want a life. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I know what I'm good at, and maybe I could be something, but I don't know. Maybe it was all that in my head last night, but I remembered my niece watching me write, and she looked over at me and she said, Annalisa, um, what's that? I'm like, what's what? And she's like, that. I'm like, what, Dolly? She's like, that, what you're doing. I'm like, I'm writing. And she's like, no, you see how you're writing? And I'm like, in cursive? And she's like, what's that? And she was maybe first grade. And I said, oh, Dolly, don't they teach you cursive in school? And she's like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how you're writing your name like that. This is how I write my name. I said, well, you print, but you have penmanship in school. And she's like, well, what's that? I'm like, what? And I remember saying to my sister-in-law, like, what is she talking about, my niece? And she's like, no, they only teach them how to print. There's no more cursive. I was like, so there's no more phonics and there's no more cursive. Okay. All right. I would have been at the school. But anyway, I taught her how to write in cursive. And she got in trouble. And I remember her coming home. And I remember I was like, oh, Dolly, I'm so sorry that you got in trouble for writing in cursive. And she kind of looked at me like, I don't know if it was shame. I don't know if it was, she was maybe a little angry or disappointed, but I think it was more that she was enjoying something, and she was told that we don't do that here. We print. And I remember saying to my sister-in-law, like, well, what do you do about this? And she's like, what do you mean, what do you do about it? Like, I'm like, I would have been at the school. Like, okay, my kid shouldn't have wrote her name in cursive. Well, she probably was, I could just imagine my niece being very proud, worked a really hard time signing her name. And, the teacher now tells her, you're going to get points taken off this test because you didn't follow instructions. It said print your name. Oh my God. I couldn't do it today. I couldn't do it. I would have been at the school all the time. And, I think my niece kind of looked at me like, like you got me in trouble. She's a little girl. Like you taught me this witchcraft of writing my name like that. And it really made me think about our signature. And I think that that's where it ties into this whole topic of, is the teacher a crazy maker? Absolutely. Okay, so maybe the rule is that you only print. Maybe that's the rule. But you could have went about it in a kinder way than you did with a little girl. So after this memory coming back to me, I remembered something else that I worked through one of my earlier go arounds, maybe even my first go around, because I bought The Artist Way, I believe, back in 1997, and I didn't open it up until 2005 when I moved to New York. Yeah, I skimmed through it, I looked at it, and I just kept putting it back on the shelf, and it came everywhere with me. I moved to Florida. I went to Barbados for a while. It came everywhere with me, and yet I didn't open it until 2005. So this memory of probably the first go around, I'm almost sure when I was living in New York, had to do with people that um, undermine your sense of strength and how to recover from that. And um, there's constructive criticism, and then there's just criticism that just, strips you of, just damages you. And Julia was talking about, I believe it's in chapter 8, and she talks about the monsters in your life, and that's where that came from. And if you can write a letter to your monster. And I had a teacher when I was younger that undermined everything that I did because he had my cousins as students in his room and he didn't like them. So he immediately didn't like me. He knew nothing about me. He just figured, well, if you're from that family, then you're a troublemaker. And but what he found was a very kind, a very creative, and a very sensitive child. And that didn't matter to him. He was going to destroy me anyway. And he did. And I carried that shame and guilt around for a long time. He mocked and ridiculed me in the classroom. And the times were different then. You didn't, when I finally let my father know, what he was doing to me, my dad went up to the school and outraged. But I'm going to get back to my niece. And um, again, the criticism that damages an artist is the criticism, whether it's well intentioned or ill, that contains no saving kernel of truth, yet has a certain damning plausibility. Um, it's a judgment. Teachers, editors, mentors are often authority figures or parent figures for a young artist, Julia writes. There is a sacred trust inherent in the bond between teacher and student. The trust, when violated, has an impact of parental violation. A trusting student hears from an unscrupulous teacher that good work is bad or lacks promise, or that he, the guru teacher, senses a limit to the student's real talent, or was mistaken in seeing talent, or doubts that there is talent. It just, the student emerges shamed, feeling like a bad artist, or worse, a fool to try. And when I read that this morning, I was like, that's the look that was on my little niece's face, that, she shouldn't have even tried this. And I wondered how, if that in any way dampened her creativity. I don't know what kind of sense of strength she had growing up, or if, I know that I carried that with me for a long, long time. Um, you know, you just hear the ridicule, and you hear the criticism in your head all the time, and it impacts your sense of strength. With my niece not being taught cursive in school, to me that was a travesty. Cursive handwriting, particularly your signature, is such a profound expression of one's individuality and creativity. I remember, as a kid, we really didn't have creative classes that I could have gone to unless it was summertime and I went to camp. And I was always making up different fonts and different signatures and how to write my name and dot my I's with hearts or stars, or, you know, creating swirly, letters that had little vines on them. It's a small but significant mark that says that you know who you are as a person. And this is my writing. I'm closing the book on Julia right now. Your signature is a form of art. It's a piece of your identity. So to not be taught something as meaningful as how to write your own name in a way that's unique to you, to me, it was so painful for me. And I think about too, like, the creative mind. You know, what are some of the first things you do when you're younger? You doodle, you scribble, you draw. So think about it. Your signature is something you carry with you for life. It's on your checks, it's on your contracts, it's on your letters, it's everywhere. But more importantly, it's a mark of your presence in the world. And how does it impact a young person when they're not taught something as significant and individual as a signature? What does it say about how we value personal expression and creativity in our society? And I will tell you that is what enraged me the most. Individuality. Your individuals. Think about when you meet a celebrity. If you meet a celebrity, what do you ask for? You stick a book under their face, their autograph book. We had autograph books as kids. We had signatures of our friends. Good luck in high school, and they would sign your autograph book. So if you have an autograph book for celebrities, you go to a sports show, you're asking for their signature. And I can almost see myself, like getting that signature back and looking at it and being like, oh, I want to see how they write their name. I want to see what it looks like. And it says something about the person. Absolutely. It's individual to them. It's how we express ourselves. And what does it say about creativity in our society when we're not teaching our children how to write their name? And all that was a way for me to tie back to our discussion today on the importance of guarding our creative time and our space. Just as we need to protect our creativity from outside interference, we also need to nurture it from within. Teaching something as simple yet as significant as cursive handwriting is one way to foster the sense of individual creativity in young people. Now, I can't remember the last time. I can't remember the last time I saw my own kid hold a pen. And maybe in work. He's working in a casino. He's got a tablet strapped to his neck. He's got a cell phone on his hip. He's got a cell phone that has a little pen in it. They write with these Apple pens and stuff. And yes, it was very lovely that my husband bought me a scribe, but that's not me. That's not me. I don't express myself that way. I can draw and doodle in the scribe, yes, but I can't water paint and color. Well, yeah, I could. But, all those lovely imperfections and how you learn and expand your creativity. Oh, wow, what a wormhole I dropped into today. So, how do we apply this to our lives today? Whether it's through the art of handwriting or other creative practices, we need to find ways to safeguard our individuality and creative expression. We need to be aware of the crazy makers in our lives, the people, or even the systems that might try to diminish our creative spark, and learn how. How do we navigate around them? I also felt as though it was a travesty that, okay, the teacher said, no, you can't, you print your name. But I don't think that she ever practiced writing her name again after that. Just too much fear. No, don't learn that. Because you might slip and you might go back to school. You might decide to write your name again. Or a teacher might see that you wrote your name. Oh my gosh. The oppressiveness of really, wanting to put your foot on someone's individuality. It still inflames me today. That whole thing. It just really just makes me so angry. So, as you go through your week this week, think about what makes your creativity unique. Think about how you express yourself, whether through words, art, or simply the way you write your name. And most importantly, think about how you can protect that expression from being stifled. I looked up just in time to see me using the disco pen. It was flashing on and off, and I don't see it flashing on and off here. Or maybe, oh, there it goes. um, I'm going to be coming into shortly. I'm trying to see, like, oh, I guess I still have a little bit more to diamond paint before I get into putting those precious little gemstones in the center. This kit has just been, oh my God, I'm drunk on joy from it, let me tell you. And when I'm done and just looking at that square completed, and I keep, running my fingers over it. I'm such a tactile person. Like, I want to feel the drills that are standing up. And like, this is just gold and yellows and maybe a little bit of chocolate brown, a few little dabs of the black. But this canvas only gets more and more interesting as you do it. And oh my gosh, exclusive to this kit are 11 enhancements. And, all different shapes, all different sizes. Some of them are baguettes that are very long. Some of them are baguettes that are very short. More round stones, more sparkly stones. There's even ABs in there. And so I can only imagine as I, progress through different sections of this canvas, how it's going to just really light up. Just light up. I mean, this is just, like I said, gold, metallic, and a little chocolate brown. And it's just so sparkly. Those metallic drills. Oh my gosh. They're just so awesome. I started to skim through other parts of the Artist Way while I had the book out. Again, and we did the listening path, which is a shorter, condensed version of the Artist Way, where the Artist Way is a 12-week program. The listening path was a 6-week program. So if any of this resonated with you and you thought, well, I want to know a little bit more about these lessons through creativity and how I can recover. And I love that Julia writes the word recover. I know that she is a recovering alcoholic, and she did a 12-step program, and she, then did a 12-step program to recovering her creativity, because I think with a lot of creatives that, well, she does so much. And, for her, she had her own little ritual where, she would sit down with a drink and it would like kind of, loosen up the muses a little bit, I would imagine. And, when you were looking to recover from alcoholism, I'm sure it was very fearful to think about, well, it's the alcohol that keeps everything loose and moving, and I become more creative. And that's, right about the time that she wrote this book. And I have been blessed to see her 3 times when I lived in New York, and I just sat like in the front row. It was in the New York Open Center, so they're basically just conference rooms and conference room tables, and I sat right in front of the lectern stand that she had, and I just sat there and just looked at her and just stared up at her. I just couldn't. Oh my God, she's like such a goddess to me, and this is a spiritual awakening for sure also. And I continue every year that I do the Artist Way. Like I said, it might be like, oh yeah, I know all about this chapter, let me skim over it. But I had this, thinking about like even watching Saturday Night Fever. I keep wanting to say Saturday Night Live. I hope I didn't, because I get confused. Even watching Saturday Night Fever, like, it's so different than me seeing it when I was 15 years old. And now watching it now, and like there's all those little nuggets of information that are in the movie. Just how John Travolta breaks away, how Tony breaks away from
the crowd. And so many times he said, "All right, shut up. I'm bored with it now. I'm bored with it. I'm bored with it now." Because he's so frustrated. He's climbing that mountain. He doesn't know where he's going, but he knows that he's going somewhere, and he just wants to um, be doing what he's meant to do, which is dance. So I have a question, my dear subscribers. How many of you are going to now rewatch Saturday Night Fever? I'll tell you, it's on Pluto for free, which is why me and John were watching it. We didn't know what to watch. I was like, oh, he's like, he wanted to put like an old show on. That's what we love about Pluto, is that there's all different categories of shows that you can watch, and it doesn't even matter if the movie started. You could say start from the beginning. I mean, that's a great deal. I don't even get that with my cable, I don't think. And yeah, so how many of you are going to like watch Saturday Night Fever? And of course, it went right into Staying Alive. And what was really interesting, talk about another creative individual that I love, Sylvester Stallone. When Staying Alive started, it's you see Tony. He's in New York. He's doing what he loves. He's dancing. Oh my gosh! And Cynthia Sykes is his girlfriend, and I just love Cynthia Sykes as a dancer. She's phenomenal. And you see him trying out for, he's trying to get into Broadway, I would imagine. I forgot the movie. But when it opened up, I was like, why do I feel like I'm watching the musical of Rocky? And I had no idea that Sylvester Stallone not only wrote the script for Staying Alive, that he actually directed it also. And so we're probably going to be following up with that one tonight. John was too tired last night. And he's like, this music, he's like, I was like, doesn't it sound like Rocky? And then we looked at the screen and it said written and directed by Sylvester Stallone. And we were like, what? Like, we got like a second win. And he's like, no, let me just go to sleep. We have too much to do tomorrow morning to get ready, because he is making a movie. My creative husband, who, he's getting ready to retire, and he writes music, and he's now making a movie. And, we just feed off of each other. Our creative energy, it just goes back and forth. Where I am not the I don't shine the brightest, he does, and vice versa, and so we're able to help each other out. And so I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of that too, with the membership. I would love for you guys to just see a jam session. One of my friends, well, John's friend, who's now my friend, who I think I introduced you to, I think I put one of his songs up, and I'm like, Dante, I'm doing this whole thing about creators and creatives and how they create and where they create, and you wrote this awesome song, and we have to talk about it. And he was like, yeah, sure, would love to be interviewed. So I was thinking about maybe doing stuff like that. I would love to do a one on one with other creators that I love here on YouTube. So many fabulous diamond painters that I just adore. And I love their energy. And I could say, like, each diamond painter that I gravitate toward, whether they have a channel or, well, I guess, yeah, you do have a channel, or they're on my channel, and they talk openly about what it is that they're working on. But the creators that I've the diamond painter creators that have a channel, each one of them is different. Each one of them is so different, and there's just such a personal touch to their their channel. Yes, there's the diamond painting channels that are very instructional and they serve their purpose. They sure did for me in the beginning, but I love having, where I can really get a sense of who the person is, and where they get their creative energy from, how they fill their cup, what it is that they do that fills their cup creatively. And you can always, see that spilling out and over. And did I get to these little gems yet? They're coming. They have to be. Did I put them in already? Oh my gosh, did I just talk my way right through and didn't even see myself putting the gems in? It has to be, because I'm actually, oh my gosh, I'm actually just, am I aligning things? I can't believe that I missed that part. No, I didn't. Did I? Yeah, I did. I'm admiring my work right now, and I would suggest that you do that when you're done. Just take a moment, the way that I tell you to take a pause before you begin diamond painting and do a little survey. Really, just sit back and admire your work, admire your hard work that you put in and what you're creating. I love that there's no glue around the edges either. It's just so nice. And again, you could just see me feeling the diamond drills. Again, just admiring my work. Bye.
Show you how happy I am with this canvas. Zoom in on the smile. Oh gosh, I just love this canvas. I've never done anything like it, and the texturing and it's just, you just want to, you're mesmerized the whole time that you're doing it. I know that I am. I just am like, I really thought that these were going to be difficult, but they're not. I really thought, oh wow, are these going to stick to putty or wax? I'm going to have to put these on with water? Like, I had so many things going through my mind, but no, they don't. And I have all my pens here because I switch on and off, and I wanted you to see that whether I'm using putty or I'm using wax, I can still pick them up with a placer, and they don't stick. Now, where I have trouble is once you're coming down to like maybe 1 or 2 drills that you have left that you have to put in, I find that my skinny pens work the best. And this one with the light was kind of like a disco there for a while. Didn't want to stay on. That was funny. And of course, I'm marking my trays. I didn't buy these trays for this reason, and yet I am using them more and more. I like being able to have them out right next to me. If I forget or if I miss something, it's not a big deal because it's right there. It's right there. And I will tell you, with Tuesday, when I do Beauty in Violet, it is going to be something altogether different. There was week 1 of confetti, which was This Is Your Sign to Try Confetti, where we worked on really being able to diagnose where the shading is, and then week 2 it was working in the light and then marrying them together. Now week 3, which is this coming Tuesday, is going to be, what if you have a block where it's all light or all shade? What do you do? So that was really interesting to work through. So I'm looking forward to that. And my news is that I am able to now have a membership on my channel. And it just seems fitting that it would be Labor Day weekend, because this past year and a half has been a labor of love. And everything that I do, I sit down, I write out my scripts, I really think about how I want to come in, and videotape and what my graphics are going to be. I make all my own graphics. That's very important to me because I love graphic design. And, so I also feel like I spill all the tea here anyway. I tell you guys everything, when it's just a normal whip and chat or a master class, or like, well, so what am I going to get for my membership? And I was storyboarding with my husband John, and telling him all the behind scenes stuff that we do, whether together or separately, that I think influences my diamond painting. I have Self Care Sunday, which is a staple here on this channel. And I have John doing readings, which he's going to be doing a reading in October, I believe. Yeah, it's going to be like spooky stories. And he has one spooky story that is really, it's not so spooky, but it's spooky. And I think that that's going to be interesting I love having someone read to me. I haven't had anybody read to me since I was a kid, so it was one of the things in our relationship, because I love stories, but if I sit down to read a book, I'm like, one page, I'm like, Okay, my eyes are crossed. I'm going to sleep. So it would be like, I'd be like, oh, I'll just watch the movie. There are some stories that I did read on my own, um, that they didn't put me to sleep. But John likes these novels that are very descriptive, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. The rose was red. Come on. So, behind the scenes, I am working on you getting any new um, uh, canvases that I have coming. You'll get first. There's a lot of things. Like, I really thought, well, like, what could I offer people to have a membership? And then again, I just think, I've had people notify me on my Facebook page. If it wasn't for you guys saying, hey, there's a message for you on your Facebook page, I would never go there. But I've gotten messages from subscribers saying, do you have like a PO box? I want to send you something, which is very kind and very sweet. But no, I don't have a PO box. And I don't know, everything will go back into this channel. My memberships will go back into this channel, and you and I will be able to have. I would love to have a conversation where you get to ask me questions. I get to ask you questions. I want to have get-togethers where we can all diamond paint together, and I could see what you're diamond painting. You guys get to see what I'm diamond painting. I want to see what you're diamond painting and how do you like it. And I think there's so much power in unboxings, but even more so when you get to talk to someone that's actually working a canvas and they get to give you a little information in there. I'm going off on a tangent. And I hope that you enjoyed this week's Self-Care Sunday. I mean, it was a topic that, I don't know. I think that over the years, have done a good job at really deciphering people that they just want to grab your creative fire. And I don't like, saying things in the negative. There have been some people where it was kind of like, why do you want this information? Like, why are you interested in what I'm doing? And then you can tell from there if it's just somebody that doesn't know their way and they would like to do it, and then you see them progressing in whatever it is that you're telling them. And then there's just some people that they just want to stand in your way. They just, it's making me feel ill. It's making me feel ill, but I feel things very deeply, whether it's happiness, joy, pain, sorrow. And for those of you that were able to see the video that I put up yesterday, I took it down because I felt like this is something that I would share with my members, people that know me. And if you're new to me and you're kind of like, whoa, wow, this is kind of deep, you don't have an understanding of me, so those type of things will be left to me. I branch off into many different, I take one subject and it's like a tree trunk, and it just keeps growing branches. And like, the more I kept thinking about this, the more I was like, I can't come to my channel every day and look at this. My heart is broken, but there's something to learn from it. But I will discuss situations like that with my members, is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I'm so excited. I hope that you are, and I hope to see you where we can have chats and really get to know that this was the main thing for my channel, was that we form a true community. And every time I see that you guys make friends with one another and you talk to one another, and if I'm having a chat or a live and you sign on and you know one another and you speak to one another, oh my gosh, I'm just so overjoyed. So anyway, I keep saying anyway. I'm Italian. We don't know how to say goodbye. We say goodbye and we come back and we got to tell you something else, and we come back, and then when we go home we call you because we forgot something else. Anyway. Bye. Keep creating that world that you want to live in, and get ready, because you and I are going to spend some time together if you decide to become one of my members. Okay, guys. Enjoy. Bye.